And welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that is making history by premiering its 40th season. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 40 Battle of the Eras Episode 1. And I'm gonna be honest right off the bat, I have mixed feelings about this episode because it ends on a cliffhanger. Like, this is a giant milestone season and I just didn't feel the grandiosity, the full excitement that I feel like I should have after episode 1 because it ends on a cliffhanger. Now, I know we weren't going to get through all of those eliminations in the first episode, but I thought we'd at least get to the elimination arena, maybe see a round or two of eliminations, but they're saving that all for the next episode. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself talking about the ending, so let's now talk about the beginning and how this episode starts, and that's with everybody being transported to the first daily challenge via a cargo container. Era 1 comes out and they're all excited. Era 2 comes out and their energy is pretty much the same as Era 1, but then when you see Era 3 and Era 4, you just see them drenched in sweat. They're not jumping up and down, but everybody arrives, all 40 contestants get up on their podiums, and then TJ walks from the shadows to greet everybody for The Challenge 40. And it's in this moment that we see CT get very emotional. I mean, his challenge journey starts all the way back to season 8. And I'm sure thinking to the man that he was back then, that he didn't expect to be here at the Challenge 40, let alone thinking about the Challenge 40. It hits you in the feels, and it definitely got CT in the feels, and I thought that was a very lovely moment. But then all the attention turns over to TJ, who has quite a bit of info to give all the contestants and us, the audience. Everybody will be going for the grand prize money, which is a total of $1 million. Everybody gets super excited, but TJ brings the hype and energy level down a peg when he tells everybody that the first elimination night will be a busy night because 16 total players will be playing in the first elimination night, meaning that we will have 16 players going into 8 elimination rounds. 8 players, 2 from each era, will be eliminated in the first elimination. Then TJ gets into the Era Invitational rules because the results of this first daily challenge will decide who are the 16 players going into the elimination games. The man and woman from each era to finish first will win into power and win into safety, where the last place finishing man and woman in each era will go directly into the elimination. Now, their opponents will be decided by the winners of their era, as they will choose one man and one woman to send into the elimination against the last place finishers. Can I just say, right off the bat, I love hearing that last place goes directly into eliminations. But let's get into the first daily challenge called Light It Up, where it is a multi-step daily challenge where all the players are going to have to run to their puzzle stations and put together a 3D puzzle that looks like the number 40. Once they get that done, they will run to their boats, paddle out to collect 10 lights that are the color of their era. Then once they collect 10 lights, they will row back to shore and put the lights in their board. I have some opinions about this first daily challenge, first of which being I love that it is testing every competitor in different skill sets. You're testing players in their puzzle solving abilities. You're testing people's physicality and their strength and endurance. You're also testing their skills and being able to just row the boat, as a lot of people were tipping these things over. And I love that everybody is kind of going head to head inside their own era. I also like that this isn't like a traditional purge where the last place finishers head directly back to the airport. The things that I didn't like about this daily challenge is that it was at night, where I feel like the visibility kind of hindered this challenge looking better. I also think that there were some pretty big lulls in this daily challenge because it wasn't very thrilling or exciting. Like, there's a puzzle. That's not going to be that thrilling to watch people try to put this puzzle together. And then I felt like once people got onto the water, the camera crews were kind of just like, all right, we'll just wait till they come back to shore and then we'll film them and try to see how close they can get with their teammates and stuff. But I understand the decision to not make this challenge super action-packed because this gives the opportunity to show flashbacks and kind of ask the competitors where they've been, how did they get here, their evolution from when they first appeared on the challenge to where they are today for Challenge 40. So I understand the reasonings. I just felt for a milestone of a season that I wanted to start this season off with a bang and a daily challenge that would knock my socks off. I felt like it was a bit underwhelming for what I was expecting. But hey, I don't think it was a bad challenge at all. I still like many aspects of it. Let's talk about some players that I felt did surprisingly well in this challenge, like Brad. Very recently, Brad has not been shown in the best of light competition-wise when you look back at season 39 when he faced off against Kyland. And then in All-Stars 4, it seems like he had his head in the clouds a bit, but here he is finishing second place for his era on the men's side, as well as I was very surprised at how well Tina did. She did incredibly well, finishing second place for her era on the women's side. I want to give a round of applause to Tori for finally working on his puzzle skills. It's been how long since he debuted on the challenge? And he's always talked about finding a puzzle queen. But look at you now, you did some tangrams with your kids, you found them on the internet, and now you can be your own puzzle king. He gets first place for the men's side. I loved it. And I want to shout out Aviv for how well she did in this first daily challenge. Like she said, it's been 18 years since she's been on the challenge. And not only that, but her Era 2 team on the women's side is very stacked. And here she comes in, getting third place on the women's side for her team, finishing behind Laurel and Cara. Now people, I was shocked by how bad they did. Number 1 was Devin. At one point, the show said he was in last place. Now I know he had a bad raft with a hole in it, and so it sunk, he had to swim the entire thing, and he got fourth place for his era on the men's side. But even before that, I'm talking about the puzzle. Puzzles are Devin's thing, and he was falling behind to his own era. It made no sense. Luckily, Leroy had no idea what to do in this entire daily challenge, because if not, Devin would have easily come in last place. Talking about Leroy, I was pretty disappointed with how he competed in this first daily challenge. It was just really bad all the way around. I mean, the puzzle wasn't the best performance, and then once he got out in the water, it just got worse and worse and worse. Emily, I was pretty surprised that she almost got last place. She was fighting for fourth between her and Kellyanne almost won against her, and Emily's coming in with very high expectations from the entire audience. She has this reputation, yet she nearly gets last place and is about to see the first elimination of the season in this giant elimination night. And finally, Nurys. Nurys was able to finish the puzzle pretty quickly, but she had a terrible time on that boat. And then on top of that, once it was announced that she got last place for her era, I just felt like she was completely deflated. She got back on shore and was telling Horacio that she was done, that she was going to lose. I mean, look at who she would have to go against. She's got Jenny, Olivia, Casey. I'm sure she would have wanted to go up against Michelle, but now she is completely safe, finishing in first place. But it just seemed like she was already like defeated. We get to the results. And the winners from each era, we have in Era 1, CT and Rachel. No surprise there. You got Laurel and Bananas. Not really a surprise there either. You got Era 3 with Corey and Tori. Not a surprise that Tori won for the women, but Corey winning with Devin and Jordan in that group, yeah, I'm a little surprised. And then in Era 4, you have Michelle and Horacio winning for their team. It was a close race between Michelle and Jenny, and Michelle was able to get that win. Now, the players who are going directly into elimination from Era 1 is Mark and Katie, which, can I just say, Katie breaking her oar because she was frustrated about spinning on her boat was really funny. I think that she did not embarrass herself. I felt like it was a really fun moment to have, and I love Tina being there and supportive of Katie there. For Era 2, you have Ryan and Kellyanne. You got Leroy and Naya for Era 3, and finally, Theo and Nurys will be going directly into the elimination. Now, the players are told that the whole team will go to the chamber to discuss who should possibly go into the elimination against the losers of their era team, but ultimately, the decision is up to the winners. Now, there's a lot of conversations that happened in the back half of this episode. And because they wanted to make the edit more dynamic, of course, they're going to be jumping around from each era, each team. I felt like discussing them in order of what we saw in the episodes would be too confusing. I'm going to focus on one era at a time, get through all of their conversations leading up to the chambers, and then we'll get into the chambers discussion. We're going to go in numerical order, so we're going to start off with Era 1. We first see CT and Derek have a conversation. CT tells Derek that if CT wasn't able to make it to the final and he would want 2 representatives for the men's side for Era 1, he would like Derek and Darrell to represent Era 1 in the final. But, and there's a big but, CT is worried after seeing Darrell's performance in the first daily challenge. Darrell gets 4th place, behind Brad, behind Derek. I'm surprised they're even bringing up people's names because I felt with Era 1, they were just going to default in throwing in 4th place against 5th place on how the results came for the daily challenge. But that's not the case. We go to a conversation between Rachel and Mark where Rachel says, for the guys, it's gonna be tough. Everybody's a good close friend. And then on the women's side, Rachel feels like she's gonna get some blowback no matter who gets sent in. Realistically, Tina is off the table. It comes down to Jody and Anissa. Anissa and Rachel have a strong history with each other. They used to date. Rachel and Jody aren't very well connected, and also Rachel brings up that she feels Derek and Jody would have each other's back way more than they would have her back. Now let's go over to Era 2. Coming back from the daily challenge, we hear from Ryan that he cannot trust Laurel. Derek says in the confessional, Ryan and Laurel used to be really close, except then when Laurel and Nicole Z broke up, Laurel felt like Ryan took Nicole's side. But let's be real, Laurel isn't thinking about the men's side of things. She's thinking about the women's side. Laurel says in the confessional that it's either Aviv, who she's not very connected with, or it's going to be Cara. I think it's quite funny. In the confessional, Laurel talks about wanting to keep somebody who has a winning record. She wants to keep Emily because she's muscles and can help Era 2 team win, but then making slide remarks about Cara. In the confessionals, like every time we see Laurel, she's talking about Cara in this way. And it's like, yeah, but I think Cara has a resume of winning. So if you're looking to keep the people who win these things, I think more recently Cara has won. But it feels like Laurel's decision has already been made. Even when we see a conversation that Bananas is having with Pauly and Amanda, first of which I want to say, whoa, what universe are we in? When we see Bananas, Pauly, and Amanda all joking around with each other. But Bananas thinks that the logical and fair thing to do is let Laurel pick whatever woman she wants to send in against Kellyanne, where then Bananas can pick whatever man to send in against Ryan. Era 3 is relatively quiet. Amanda feels like she's on the chopping block. I mean, Tori is empowered to say any name, and Amanda feels like, yeah, Tori's gonna say my name. But coming into the season, Amanda and Corey have this like Nelly T connection, as well as they are on the outs with their own numbers. So she's hoping that Corey can stick up for her. Tony, on the other side, is trying desperately to keep himself out of the elimination by throwing Jordan under the bus every time he can. I mean, the arguments that he brings up isn't wrong. Like, why not take a big swing on a top competitor in Jordan? If this game eventually goes to a pair or solo format, having Jordan around will be very, very dangerous. But being in a team format, that's a little bit different of a situation, you know? And realistically, Corey is looking at Tony being like, yeah, but fettuccine Alfredo, my guy. Look, I get what Tony's trying to do, but I feel like he's pushing a really giant boulder up a very steep cliff. Because Tori is 50% of this decision, and there's no way she would ever let Corey say Jordan's name. And then over to Era 4, we first see Olivia and Theo talking about what should Theo do or who he would want to go against. Olivia does mention that if you say Pauly and you could win against Pauly, when you come back, you'll have me, you'll have Michelle, and you'll have Josh. They then get interrupted by everybody telling them to kiss, 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 kiss. Later on, we see a conversation between Josh, Theo, and Jenny, where Josh tells Theo, if you go against me and take me out, you'll be coming back and you'll be at a numbers disadvantage in your own era. If you go up against Paulie, take Paulie out, then we'll retain all the numbers. This is where we hear Theo still holding on to everything that happened in season 34, where Theo says that Cara and Paulie were directly responsible for sending him into 4 eliminations on that season, which then eventually led to him being eliminated from the season. We see Horacio and Nerys having a conversation on the couch. I guess there has been talks with Era 4 where they said that they would give Nerys whoever she wanted to go up against. They go through the 3 different options of Jenny, Olivia, and Casey, and no surprise here, Nerys is like, yeah, I want to go up against Olivia. I've gone up against her before, I've been able to win against her, let's do this thing. Now we get to the chamber portion, the deliberation portion of the episode. The winners will flip over this hourglass and they'll talk for the amount of time the sand is draining in this clock. Era 1 goes exactly how you probably would think Era 1 would go. Derek volunteers because he hates that 2 friends of his have a hard decision to make. He fears for any of his friends to have to go up against one another, so Derek decides to step up and volunteer himself to go in. Now, what's surprising is that they announce that CT will be able to choose what woman will go up against Katie in the elimination. Anissa is instantly paranoid that it is going to be her. She feels that Rachel should be a part of the decision making and that Rachel could possibly be leaving her out to dry. But can I just say, if CT were to pick to send Anissa into the elimination, isn't it kinda Anissa's fault for coming in 4th place? I mean, you have no leg to stand on when you definitively get 2nd to last. And even Tina's like, we should just have 4th place going up against 5th place. I'm sorry, but your performance wasn't good in the first daily challenge. And so, if Anissa gets chosen, you just gotta suck it up and go into the elimination. If she came in 2nd place and was like, man, CT's gonna send me in, I could see her having a problem with it. But you got 4th out of 5 places. I don't think you have that much room to complain about you possibly going into the elimination or your likelihood of going into the elimination. Era 2, Ryan lets it be known that he would like to go up against Brandon. Brandon's like, whoa. Okay, if you want it, I'm gonna give it to you. Cara tries to stay as calm, cool, and collected. She basically says that she knows that Bananas and Laurel have a ton of experience. All 3 of them have a long history with each other. That the predictable thing to do would to send Cara into the elimination against Kellyanne. But why do the predictable? Let's start off fresh. Let's work for a team. Let's be a team. But then we hear a confessional from Laurel calling Cara an anchor. So it just feels like the decision has already been made. Laurel has been talking nothing but trash against Cara the entire time, and now she's calling her an anchor and saying you gotta swing big at the beginning of this season. So I think it's just a huge giveaway that Laurel is gonna want to send Cara into the elimination. Era 3, Tony continues to keep pushing Jordan in front of that bus. But Jordan, cool as a cucumber, comes back and says it's still early in the game. You're gonna have a lot of time to have to try to make that final, and I can help you make that final. As well as he says that he always repays his debts, which leads to the idea that if Corey decides to keep Jordan safe, maybe some point down the line, Jordan would have to keep Corey safe. I think all signs were pointing that Tony was going to be the one sent into the elimination, but Jordan sweetening the pot, saying like, oh, I always repay my debts and I'll help you out, that's almost too good to turn down in my opinion. Amanda tries to give her side of the story, saying like, pulling at Corey's heartstrings with the Nelson connection, as well as, hey, we need to look out for each other because not all of our friends are here. So, I mean, we're going to be outnumbered going forward. So you're going to want to try to keep me safe because I'm a number for you. And then she looks over to Tori and says, like, we're not friends. We'll never be friends, but we do have friends in common. And if I'm working with them and you're working with them, we're kind of working with each other in like an osmosis type of way. Looking at both Corey and Tori, it did not seem like they were really absorbing Amanda's message or it wasn't coming across in the best way. I just think, kind of like the Tony thing, I think that Amanda was just gonna have a tough path ahead of trying to stay out of elimination, and I just expect her to go into the elimination. Finally, in Era 4, Nerys is given the spotlight and asked, who would you like to go up against? Nerys says that she would either like to go up against Jenny or Olivia, and her first option is Olivia. Upon hearing that she wants to go up against Olivia, Michelle gives a little bit of a pushback, being like, well, Horacio to you is like Olivia to me. I don't want to say her name. But Nerys is like, you told me to tell you who I wanted to go up against, and let's just all remember what happened last season in season 39. This leads to Michelle shedding some tears, and Kyland is just not having any of it. We move on to the men's side, where Paulie calls out Theo, saying, I've heard you say my name in the house, and if you want to go up against me, say it now, and we can go down in the sand, and we can decide it once and for all. And Theo just looks Paulie in the eye and says, that's what's going to happen. They argue about stuff that happened in season 34. Did Theo know that Bananas and Laurel were gonna throw competitions to try to get Cara to send into elimination? Theo denies it, but Paulie adamantly feels that Theo knew everything that was going on. And pretty much by the end of it, Theo calls Paulie a coward, and if he has to send him home, he will do it himself. Which then we leave off on this really funny, synchronized like gas shock face with Kyland and Josh, who were sitting next to each other. And that's it. That's where this episode ends. We leave off on a cliffhanger from the chambers. We don't even have the elimination matchups locked in yet. I'm sure next episode we'll have a few more conversations. We'll know who's going in against whom, and hopefully episode 2 will be action-packed with a ton of eliminations and some pretty great matchups, I hope. But that's why I have like these mixed feelings about this first episode. I felt like we got a lot of information. It just feels unsatisfactory leaving on such a big cliffhanger when I did like a lot of the conversations. I loved getting to see people go back and forth, the strategy talk, Theo and Paulie going at each other in the chamber and all these comments. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel very wowed by episode 1 of season 40. I'm sure we'll get that next episode with how many eliminations we're going to get. And I know why they did it this way. They have 40 people that we got excited for a long time, and to just have like multiple people leave off on episode 1 can be pretty disappointing, especially if some of your faves get sent into eliminations and are gone, and you're like, wow, I waited so many months, I got so hyped, and in episode 1, my favorites are gone. So I understand why they did this. We get a little bit more time with everybody, and I just felt like it could have gone further. It could have been bigger and more exciting. But this is just episode 1. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon, and there's so much more to come. But that's just my thoughts on everything that happened. Now I turn it over to you. What did you think about episode 1 of season 40? Did you think it was great? What did you think about the first daily challenge? What did you think about who won and the decisions that will be made? Who do you think should be sent in? And who do you think will be sent in? Could be the same person, you never know. Are you worried about any of those last place finishers? And what are your overall thoughts on how this first episode went? Let me know anything and everything you felt about this episode 1 down in the comment section below. I want to hear what you have to say. Even though I have mixed feelings about episode 1, I'm so excited that the challenge is back. I'm so excited for this season, but I now want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 40 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.